It's a challenge because what do you do when your kid just wants to paint fingernails and play piano and they genuinely don't want to learn anything else? And if the child is discouraged, unhappy, stressed, and you're really, really doing the best you can to give them the very best, sometimes there's something deeper going on. In our world, kids have so much access to screen time that it's really causing their minds to just kind of go numb to reality. When we give children a stack of workbooks and we sit them at a desk and we say, go do that, that's not the natural way children learn. So a couple days ago, 4 of my younger daughters were all doing school together, and they were doing some homeschooling books, fun schooling, Life of Fred, and reading stories. But one of them was in a really bad mood, and she had been in a bad mood for a couple of weeks. So I pulled her aside and like, what's going on? Why are you being so grouchy and not nice while we're doing school? And she said, because you don't let me do what I want for school. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be the fun school mom, right? And I'm like, what do you mean you don't get to do what you want? She's like, well, all I want to do is paint fingernails and play piano, but you are making me do schoolwork that I don't like. So, it's a challenge because what do you do when your kid just wants to paint fingernails and play piano and they genuinely don't want to learn anything else? And she was quite upset because she kept painting her fingernails in the house and making the house stink, and I don't like the chemicals in the fingernails. And so I said, no, this is not the direction we're going. It's not healthy. So sometimes I just really don't have the answers. With some of my kids, it's been really easy to fun school them because they have passions that I'm passionate about, or they have interests that are actually just so interesting. But when you have a kid that genuinely just wants to paint fingernails, I don't know. Just don't know. This is a bad question for me today because right now I'm just going through it with a kid who really doesn't want to learn anything. But that's a kid that has a lot of childhood trauma and grew up in an orphanage. And sometimes, you got to be compassionate and give time. And I really have tried to organize her schooling around the things that she needs and the things that she loves. And we're just going to have to see how that goes. But the piano part, I really am trying to encourage. And so sometimes you have to think, what is it she really loves? Why does she love painting fingernails? And if, the child has a passion that mom doesn't necessarily want to invest in because the child's approaching it in an unhealthy way and isn't listening, it can kind of feel discouraging. And so I'm right where you are, moms, dealing with a kid that just has a bad attitude and is unhappy doing schooling. And so I'm trying to think about how it worked for other kids who were struggling. And I found that so often when your kids are in a rut, what they really need is an example. An example of a parent and older siblings who are actually passionate about learning, and to bring them alongside and say, well, let's do this together. This is fun. Because not every kid is that creator, detective, learner that has self-motivation. And so some kids learn about things because they're passionate and because they love it, but all kids learn by example. And so if you're providing an example of a love for learning and you're bringing that child alongside, sometimes spending that time together with that child is more important than making sure that they're doing their schoolwork. Really asking, what does this child really, truly need? And if the child is discouraged, unhappy, stressed, and you're really, really doing the best you can to give them the very best, sometimes there's something deeper going on. And sometimes we have to step aside and say, maybe it's not the schoolwork that's causing this child this kind of stress or resentment or lack of motivation. What else could be going on with this child? And a lot of people call it de-schooling, where you just step back from the situation, you take a break from whatever it is you're doing, and you focus on that child. I've had a lot of parents who've come to me and said, my child doesn't want to learn anything. They're bored. They're not interested. I've done my very best. And all they want to do is play video games. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing about it? And they're like, well, unless I just let him play video games all day, he's in a bad mood and he's not happy. And for that child, a lot of times they're disinterested in learning and studying and research in art, creativity, and skill building because they actually have an addiction that's standing in the way of them learning. So often, parents feel like they're so they cannot control their child. Their child is controlling them, and it's supposed to be fun schooling. So I've talked to moms who their kids aren't interested in learning anything because they're so into the video games. And it's just reality that if your kids are addicted to video games, screens, they have their own phone, the home is full of distractions, then you're going to have a hard time competing with that to help your child to be curious. So you need to get back to curiosity, creativity, imagination, wonder. And a lot of times it starts with unplugging that child. And so what I've done is I've said, I know I'm supposed to be fun school mom, but I'm not no school mom, So we're going to do the best we can to organize your learning around the things you love. And there will be no screen time until after 4:00. And that is only if you have really made an effort with your learning, with your skill building, with your creativity, getting outside in nature, being active, and finishing your chores. Don't even ask. And if you've done all these other things well, then you can have an hour playing your game or on a screen or watching a show. But if a child knows that as soon as they're done with their schoolwork, they get to play their games, they're going to rush through their schoolwork to play their games. That's a mistake a lot of parents make is, honey, finish up your school and then you can play your games. And they think they're motivating the child to do the school. They're motivating the child to rush through it, do a sloppy job because their focus is on the games. So one thing I've learned that's worked for a lot of families is say, okay, you need to focus on doing your schoolwork, take your time, do your 6 pages, and when you're done, you're going to be cleaning out the refrigerator. And after that, you can play your game. And so instead of the child looking forward to playing their game, they're looking forward to cleaning out the refrigerator. And every single day you have to find some new thing. Okay, we're going to be scrubbing toilets as soon as you're done with your schoolwork. It's all about perspective. So your child loves sharks, and they love the ocean, and they collect seashells. But all they want to do is play video games. You know your child loves sharks. You bought all these books about sharks, and you've got all this fun stuff. But compared to the video games, learning about sharks is boring, but compared to cleaning out the refrigerator, learning about the sharks seems pretty exciting. And so what they do is when they know that the next thing after school is a chore that's not their favorite, they're going to actually put a lot more time and effort into school. So we'll just say, take all the time you need on your schoolwork. Let me know when you're finished. I'll check your work, and then we can clean out that fridge. So that is kind of a motivation for the kids who rush through their schoolwork because they want to get on with the bigger fun or with the thing they're addicted to. Some kids really need to detox from the games and from the movies and things like that. In our world, kids have so much access to screen time that it's really causing their minds to just kind of go numb to reality. And if that's your kid, you need to be the parent and you need to help them unplug. But sometimes there's something else going on. And having kids that came out of really traumatic situations, everything will be fine. They're doing their schoolwork, they're having fun, they like the things that they're studying, and then all of a sudden they're just in this funk and they're having a bad attitude and they're being mean to the other kids and they get really sloppy and throwing their books around, intentionally losing or destroying their books. It's easy to just get upset and like make it all about school. But I've learned that when they get into these moods, sometimes there's actually a trigger. And sometimes there's something more going on. And we take the time and we investigate and we find that there's something else going on, like a bullying experience going on from an older sibling, some breakup with a crush, that mom didn't even know was going on. A lot of times, the way to find out why the kid is upset is talking to the siblings, because the child themselves won't talk. But siblings a lot of times will give you a clue as to why that child is in a bad mood and not focusing on school. But one thing to remember, school is not everything. You're not a teacher. You're a mother. And all throughout history, mothers teach their children by example. They teach them about the relevant things that kids need to learn to be valuable parts of society. Mothers teach skills. And how do mothers teach? By bringing the child alongside, being an example, and showing them step by step how to do all the things that adults do. And so when we give children a stack of workbooks and we sit them at a desk and we say, go do that, that's not the natural way children learn. Children learn by doing things and by seeing other people do things. So as you evaluate what's wrong with this child's school experience, if it's not that the child has some screen addiction and is bored, it's not that there's some trigger or some heartbreak or something going on with bullying, or the child just having a bad day, not getting enough sleep, not getting enough hydration, too much sugar. So many things can lead to problems. But you know what? Your child may be unhappy about school because the school that you're expecting them to do is either boring, irrelevant, or maybe it's stuff that is like too childish for them or too mature for them. And so when your child is struggling, you need to evaluate all these different possibilities. And then if the curriculum is actually the problem and your child doesn't love learning because your learning materials are boring or difficult or monotonous, or it's just memorizing, don't be afraid to throw it out and try something new. And kids learn best by doing things a lot of times together, by doing projects, by building skills, and by researching things that they love. And a lot of times, kids learn best when you are actually giving an example. So when your child is miserable about school, go look at their schoolwork and say, would I like to sit down for 4 hours and do this schoolwork myself? And as you flip through the schoolwork, if the answer is no, that would be boring, miserable, monotonous, and painful, and I have a million other things more important to do than these super boring workbooks, then throw them out. I struggled with finding resources that my kids liked in the first few years of homeschooling. I tried so many different things, and when my kids would become bored, I'd be like, this isn't learning. I want my kids to love learning. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to find something else. It came to the point that I had developed a whole system of teaching my kids that basically required me to create a custom eclectic curriculum for each child that revolved around their passions every few months. And then after a few weeks of being excited about it, they would lose all the books. They would leave their notebooks outside. They would move on to a new interest. And things would just happen. Life would happen, and we could never keep up. But I loved the eclectic learning that kind of combined Charlotte Mason with unschooling, with delight-directed learning, with projects, with unit studies. But with so many children, you just couldn't spread yourself so thin. So I started making do-it-yourself fun schooling journals where I created 10 activities a day where the kids are researching something they love. And while researching something they love, they're also learning the important and required subjects that kids would typically learn in school, because a lot of states still require that the kids would study all the different subjects, but so much better if they're studying those subjects from the perspective of something they loved. And for my children, this was the answer, that they could work through these do-it-yourself fun schooling journals, 10 pages a day, with a big stack of books and videos about things they love, and it took the stress off of me. But I had a struggle with this too, is the kids were often being sloppy. They weren't putting their heart into it, and they were just rushing through the pages and trying to get to the movie pages and the pages that they liked best. And so I thought there's got to be a way to be an example of how to do these fun schooling journals right. And I thought, you know what? I can make myself a fun schooling journal so I can study the things I love while they're studying the things they love, while creating in my mom's fun schooling journal an example of what I expect. And so about 1 year after I created the do-it-yourself fun school curriculum for my kids, I created Mom's homeschooling handbook, a home learning guide, and I made it for myself. I brought it home. I made myself a fun schooling basket with my own colored pencils, my own pens, and my own stack of books about the things I wanted to learn. And so when I brought the kids around the table with their baskets and their books, I showed up with mine, and I said, I'm so excited. I get to learn about essential oils and baking and all these other things that I wanted to learn about. And I had really set aside my passions and the things I was curious about so I could just focus on homeschooling my kids. But I realized the best way to teach them to do a good job and to focus and research and love learning is to focus and research and love learning myself. And so for a season, I would just get out my mom's school basket, and while they're working on theirs, I would work on mine, and they would come up, they would look at my work, they would be curious, the little ones would want to help, the older ones would be inspired about how to do these pages, and they thought it was so cool that my fun schooling workbooks had the same kinds of pages as theirs, and I just showed that I was excited about learning. And the funny thing is when I was studying essential oils or just the different things I was learning, they became interested in the same things I was learning because they saw me getting into it. And then I began to get interested in the things that they were interested in. So if I had a child that was really into space, I'm like, oh, I'm going to study space too. And so I would get a few space books and Joe would get a few space books. We would sit down together and I'd be studying space. Found out I was really interested in, the things that Elon Musk is trying to do, getting to Mars, the rockets. And then I remembered that when I was a little girl, my dad worked for NASA. I loved going to the launches. I wanted to go to space camp. And space and space exploration had been my passion up until I was about 11 or 12 years old. And that passion kind of ended for me when I was standing outside looking into the sky and the Challenger space shuttle blew up right in front of my eyes. And my dad was there working at the Space Center. And when that happened, I really drifted away from that passion. My family moved away from Florida. My dad lost his job, and I kind of forgot how much I love space and space exploration. So it was fun that I was just going to show my son how to study space and kind of reignited a passion and an interest and a curiosity that I had loved when I was a kid, and at the same time being an example to my son. So the Mom's Homeschooling Handbook and some of these other ones, the Flip to Fun Schooling Idea Book, these are tools that you can use to be an example to your kids. And another thing that I've noticed, a lot of kids are not motivated to do their schoolwork because there's friction in the home. Mom is stressed. The house is a mess. The kids are running wild. And mom is in survival mode, just trying to survive and do a good job and always feeling like it's never enough and there's so many things undone. And so I've been able to find a method for myself where I was able to get out of survival mode and to organize my days and my planning and my priorities in such a way that I was able to prioritize the things that really matter, not just the things that are urgent. So, so many people would say, how do you accomplish so much when you have 10, 15 kids? And I have accomplished a lot. I've published over 360 books. I've launched 8 kids into adulthood who are independent, passionate about life, living their calling, living their dream, and still love their family. And so as women come to me and say, how do you do it all? And I say the secret is by not doing it all. Because you can't do it all. You need to prioritize. And so I made this series of 90-day get out of survival mode pocket planners that teach you how to not do it all. And I'll tell you a little bit about how these work, because if you're in survival mode, you need help, you need to get out, and you need to stop trying to do it all and be it all, because you never will. So the idea is how to get out of survival mode. You can't do it all, but you can do a lot. You have big dreams, and your life is so demanding. Maybe you wonder how you will ever accomplish anything important. Here's the plan. Do 4 important things every day for 90 days. If you skip a day, just begin again. If you write down your 4 goals every morning or every night before you go to bed, you might actually change your life, live your dreams, and get out of survival mode. Now, the trick to getting out of survival mode and prioritizing is that on day 1, you choose 4 important things that you can accomplish. Important. On day 2, you choose 4 necessary things that you can accomplish that day. There is a big difference between important and necessary. And so often our lives are driven by these urgent, necessary obligations, the things that we have to do, and so often we don't do the important things. So I'm going to wrap this up by asking you to make a list. What are 4 important things that you haven't had time for that would each only take 20 minutes? And then what are 4 necessary things that you really need to get done that are really plaguing you that you've got to do it? It's necessary. If you don't, you're in trouble. Write down those 4 things. And one day, focus on the things that are important. The next day, focus on those things that are necessary. The next day, do 4 things that are important. The next day, do 4 things that are necessary. So often the important things only take 5 minutes. Like, call your grandmother. And so some people don't need this book because now you know the secret. Do your 4 necessary things one day. Do your 4 important things the next day. But the thing is creating a habit around accomplishing both the necessary and the important. And I'm pretty sure these books are like $10 each to change your life. It's Sarah's Secret 90-Day Pocket Planner, the easiest way to live your dreams and get out of survival mode. So I would challenge you for 90 days, just pick up this little book and do your important things and do your necessary things and don't stress out about not getting enough done because 4 things a day is enough. And if you want to be an example to your kids who are struggling with really focusing and doing a good job with their homeschooling, find one of our mom school books, one of the mom's handbooks, and that's going to really help you to show your kids how much you love learning. It's going to give you a chance to focus on the things that you love, and you're going to give your kids an example of how to do school. And they'll say, hey, my mom likes doing school. It must be important. And then if you're just getting started with fun schooling, I would say get Mom's Fun Schooling Handbook, the Fun Schooling Idea Book and Journal. There's 180 activities in here. And a lot of states you're required to do 180 days of school each year. And so I made 180 activities for moms. So at the start of your school day, open up to a page and do 1 activity each day for 180 days. And that will really keep you on track with homeschooling. So I hope that these resources will help you. All the resources that I've created for homeschooling, mom schooling, fun schooling, they're all based on solving a problem that is common for the homeschool family because homeschool families are different from families where you send your kid to school and they're gone for 7 hours and they come home and they have a little homework. In the homeschool family, you're with your child and you're teaching them and you are responsible for their education, and that can be a big stress. So relax, get out of survival mode, don't try to do it all in one day because you can't. And remember to be an example. And while you're being an example, you get to study something you love. And that's really going to give you a sense of freedom, accomplishment, and this feeling that you actually are doing enough because you can open up your Fun School journal and you can see that you have been an example to your kids, and that is really going to be a big victory for you. If you have any more questions about mom schooling, fun schooling, getting out of survival mode, drop them in the comments. If you like this video, please share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe. Go to funschooling.com for all our resources. There's a whole page called Mom School where there are so many amazing resources that I designed just for moms. And if you'd like to win one, just comment, tell me what you liked about this video, and I'll be picking a few winners. So see you next time.